In the wild western wastelands of the Great White North, two gay lefty scumbags embark on an endless pursuit for the true meaning of wokeness. This is Woke in the West.
I love you. You love me. We all love Prime Minister Mark Carney. No.
Nope. Definitely not.
Wow.
Not so far.
Hello there, Eric.
Hello there, Nash. Welcome. Episode 4, Woke in the West.
Woke in the West.
Here we go in our sweat box once again on a hot summer day. The sun is shining outside, but we are here inside here instead to give you the latest hot news.
Yes, or at least
hot, sweaty news.
Well, hot from like maybe the last week, and then a little bit more lukewarm from like the week before that, and then a little bit before the week before that, because we've been, just kind of slacking off.
Just a couple of Zoomers trying to maintain a bi-weekly upload schedule. It's
while working other jobs as well and having life things come up.
Yeah, shit happens,
Yeah, it's a tough economy right now, It's hard to find that money that you desperately need to live off of,
Basically, yeah. So what's going on in Canada right now? Canada first.
Woo, yeah.
Mark
Let's
Carney is
put that spotlight right on our beautiful home country. And what do we see? Why, we see Prime Minister Mark Carney not making the greatest first impression on the population with his first few proposed laws, as it were. We've already gone into Bill C2 and C5.
The letter opening bill.
Yeah, the Privacy Violation Act.
Privacy Overreach Bill.
And then the Provincial and Indigenous Integrity Overriding Act. I don't know. Maybe I can come up with
the Infrastructure Bill. I'll just call it the Shitty Infrastructure Bill. The Shitty Infrastructure Projects Bill. I mean,
the
it could
Cram
be
It
good.
Through Bill.
Yeah.
We regret to say that the Cram It Through Bill has passed, because when you are in government proposing conservative legislation, the conservatives will vote for it.
They'll eat that shit up.
So the liberals and the conservatives came together as one big happy family to say, screw the provinces and screw Indigenous Canadians' rights to their land. We are going to push through Bill C5, which means that it is governmentally acceptable to put any project through that is considered a nation-building project
serves the Canadian public interest.
Yes, without the consultation of the actual stakeholders whose land is being affected. So, I mean, I guess Mark Carney is making good on his objective to be a capitalist and pursue the almighty dollar at cost of basically everything else, whether it's your rights as a Canadian or the provincial rights as, their distinct territories. But whatever, I guess, we have to get our finances separate from America somehow.
Yeah, I mean, when all is said and done, at least it's not Pierre Poilievre. I'm still happy that he didn't get in.
The ground that he's standing on continues to be shaky, even with this, easy layup of a by-election coming down the pipeline.
We would have had all of this plus shitty Trumpism slogans on top of that to deal with. So I'm glad that we're at least not doing that.
Yeah, every time Pierre would have proposed a piece of legislation as prime minister, he would have been like, this is our stance against the
woke moral majority.
I totally butchered those letters there. But yeah, the moral wokeness crusade epidemic that's sweeping this country. I have this bold proposed legislation that says, we're going to shoot every puppy on sight or something. Like, this is how we defeat
like the
woke
judge in
moral
Blood
agenda. Yeah.
In other news, I just got my my dental card.
Yes, thankfully the NDP legacy lives on in low-income Canadians' ability to receive dental care as part of our nationwide federal health care, which really it should include everything. So, Jagmeet left something of a legacy.
Yeah, I guess so.
Even without being in government, he's found ways to make headlines.
Yeah, I finally got my dental card in the mail. Sorry for destroying your party, Jagmeet. I feel kind of bad about that.
They have the opportunity to rebuild.
Yeah.
And hopefully, go somewhere. the reason that we had them was because they kept the liberals in check. And since we have a prime minister right now, Mark Carney, who had no governmental elected experience before, had never proposed a bill before, we literally had no idea how he would govern. And now that we're seeing what his legislation looks like and how, like, it's basically the fiscal conservative, liberal agenda we were expecting. Of course, the conservatives are going to go for it. And we have no progressive wing of the government anymore to push back and fight for things like the dental care that you just received or the CERB benefits that we got after the world shut down in COVID. Like, those things were fought for explicitly by the more progressive wing of the government, which was the NDP. So I hope that with Canadians being as aware of their national climate as they are right now in this moment, that maybe even if the NDP isn't as strong in the next election, that they realize just how valuable that position is, not just for the health of the good democracy and government, but for what it can improve in terms of bargaining. Like how valuable it can be to have those seats that make you kingmaker and allow any bills to get passed. Because if the liberals are passing bills that the conservatives like enough to vote in lockstep behind them with, then who do we really have in office right now? Not a progressive, not a centrist.
Definitely
even.
not.
So food for thought, I'd say.
All right, so this is kind of tied to the U.S. right now, and the stuff going on there.
Specifically pertains to a Canadian, though.
Yes.
Like, we know that this is still our Canada First section, and we will get to the U.S. momentarily, the less important country. But right now, I'm surprised this isn't a national incident.
Yeah, not a peep from the government for the most part.
Or the news, really.
No. This should be like national news.
This is something that I think would give our country probable cause to close the border until we can figure out what the hell is going on in America, because a Canadian national died in ICE custody in
49-year-old Canadian citizen.
Yes, 49-year-old Canadian citizen passed away a few days before the death was even reported. It was reported on June 26th. The death happened at June 23rd. They didn't say anything for 3 days. Did the guy have charges? Was he a suspected drug peddler, criminal? Sure. But the purpose of having due process and a court system is that it needs to be proven. There needs to be, probable cause before you can take away. Well, you shouldn't be taking away anyone's rights. But the fact that this is the way the U.S. is operating right now is to essentially find these people that are suspects or problematic and throwing them in cells.
They just look suspicious.
Leaving them there to die. And then coming back and being surprised that they're dead.
What?
Well, in a way, I'm sure that the Americans see that in their paperwork and they just see it as the trash taking itself out.
Yeah.
But that isn't how you solve problems. That's not how you make the non-criminal part of your population feel safe or comfortable.
And I just hate the defense. He was a drug dealer, though.
Yeah.
Therefore, you deserve to die in basically a concentration camp.
Yeah. This isn't Rodrigo Duterte's Philippines, where he said, he'd shoot any and all drug dealers on sight. Like, we all globally condemned that when that was a thing. So even if someone has those,
Trump probably loved it.
Yeah. He loved Duterte.
Oh yeah. And now we're seeing the result of that admiration.
Well, Duterte did it way more intensely in that he was shoot all the drug dealers and drug users on the street. Like, basically,
who knows? It might get to that point. Give it a couple years. We're only like a couple months into this.
That was
the shit we're at.
The absolute most extreme, obviously, that gunned them down on sight. I would argue that, I know this is a really weird, kind of like a scale or a meter to judge by, but if the Philippines Duterte government shooting drug dealers and users on sight was the most extreme option, what El Salvador did, with just throwing all the gangbangers in a jail and throwing away in a concentration camp, jail is a bit too generous of a word. Yeah. But if that is that, I think is more what Trump's trying to emulate, because shooting people on the street is the extreme thing. So when you have the El Salvador being like, actually, the reasonable approach is to just throw everyone in jail and never think about or look at them again. Yeah, that is what's considered the reasonable approach. And so that's what Trump's been trying to purchase, because turning the guns on the American people, that might be the one thing that actually gets the right wingers to be like, wait, we do have guns. We can fight back against tyranny.
We can defend our country, actually.
No, but the Americans don't remember how to fight against tyranny. They don't even remember what tyranny is. They thought Obama wearing a tan suit in 2009 was a tyranny. So, what the hell do they know? Meanwhile, in Canada, there's a little CTV News report here I'd recommend people check out regarding Quebec's new language law. Now, if anyone that's a viewer knows
mythical
Quebec,
battle between
you know
goblins
that Quebec loves
and
to
giants,
put French above all else.
Oh yeah, they love their French there.
So much so that they will
Commit terrorism.
Well, yes, but also they will delegitimize the use of English by passing laws within their province to not recognize English as a spoken language on any level. And so that's why there's this report by CTV about a hobby shop in Quebec that, you know, sells little miniatures and figures and paints and such, and how, because there's no French on them, it's technically all illegal.
Yeah, and you can't get these board games in French because they're like little niche indie board games, you know? The kind of shit that Kevin O'Leary would scoff at on Shark Tank and Dragon's Den.
I want to destroy all board games everywhere.
So let's have a little look here.
Yeah, this is a nice short video.
It's a mythical battle between goblins and giants, explained in an unusual language, Fringlish.
Le beau de le fun, c'est que tu fais un nerve test.
It's seamless integration of English and French, and it's awesome. It's part of what our community is.
But at this hobby shop in St.
I mean, I think
Max-sur-le-Lac,
it's silly, but
an
whatever.
even bigger fight is brewing.
I realize that
the
about
figurines
90%
are
of my
pretty
shop
cool.
is illegal.
That's because products like this are made abroad, and the packaging is primarily in English.
Right now, we do have a bit of French on the top of the box here. We have Intercesseur d'assaut.
At BD Cosmos in Laval, it's a similar story.
This is their branded paint line, and it's only in English.
They don't
Julian
really talk about it
Vasquez
here, but
says about
I
30
know for the most part that a lot of these small miniature paint stuff, it tends to be made in the US, which is a whole other like topic of like a news discussion, you know, the elbows up and stuff. But the fact is we just don't have the industries that make those sorts of small batch craft paint in this country anymore. I think some of it might come from Europe too, but and then I guess it would be more likely to have a French on it if it came from Europe. But I think the majority of this stuff is coming from the US, where the bulk of all this like Magic the Gathering and
you're more likely to
stuff
have
comes
Spanish
from.
on there and English instead of French and English, honestly.
Even the shop owner's named Julian Vasquez, apparently.
How appropriate.
Why'd they send him to Quebec?
Percent of his store, including games, cards, and art supplies, would be in violation of
The
Bill
trademark
96.
Nasdaq.
I would have to liquidate the entire line or close off that portion of the store to Quebec customers and only sell online to the rest of Canada.
The store owners say these materials simply aren't available in French, and under strengthened language laws, wouldn't be available to customers here.
There's no way.
So does this affect the rest of Canada, or is this just a Quebec problem?
It just is a Quebec.
Wow.
Because they keep passing laws that make it harder to do anything in English.
They want to be a European country so bad. They want to be a nice little French
They want to be
village
a
so
French
bad.
nationalist country.
We're going
That's all
to
they
make
want.
a box for Quebec, which represents a tenth of 1% of the Western world.
1/10
So, for
of
many
1%.
hobbyists-
If you told a
Find a new
Quebecer and their Quebecer interests that their interests represent the interests of 1% of 10 of like a fraction of a fraction, they would be so mad at you. But this is exactly the argument that I make, that Canada has no business pretending to be a bilingual country when the like vast majority of the country has no business or reason to speak French in their daily life.
No.
Yet we're expected and forced to know this second language to ascend to any level of government.
Yeah.
Beyond like
You need like a
city
minimum of
council.
French in school too. Remember French immersion?
Yeah.
These retailers are asking for an exemption to the bill, saying much like bookstores,
Good luck with that.
it's a cultural industry. Without a reprieve, for stores like Boutique Tabletop, it would be a fatal
Is
blow.
she trying to say boutique
I'm
like
close.
it's French?
I'm close. If I have to do that, it's just not possible. I've survived
even
COVID,
boutique.
I've survived
Boutique.
floods, and now that would be the end of it? That'd be really sad.
Unfortunately, the repercussions that it's going to have on our little community are massive.
My main concern is that my hobby will be unattainable in Quebec. I won't be able to have access to this product.
Which for these players
That's correct.
would be game over. Kelly Gregg, CTV News, St.
Oh,
Martin-sur-le-Lac.
Quebec. God forbid people have fun.
Yeah. No more board games for you unless they are in French. Donjons and Dragons.
Donjons Dragons.
Donjons et Dragons.
The way that I'm still thinking about the way she said boutique instead of boutique, because I feel like boutique is a French word, isn't it? So boutique must be, because like we know that like Quebec French is like basically hillbilly French from like 250
Yeah.
years ago. Like if someone was like literally a frozen caveman and emerged and spoke French, the Quebec French is what they would be speaking. So is boutique the Quebec French boutique? Like, is that really like, and when you notice that, like I am noticing it here, it just makes you go like, okay, guys, we really have no reason to play your imaginary games. Like, can we just all come to the table and like speak the same language, or at least recognize the fact that other people don't speak your language? Hello?
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. I know
that's offensive.
I've been in politics, and I will continue to advocate against the French language as a Canadian who is the child to first generation Canadian immigrants. You know, my family's from Mexico and Italy, and you know, there's no French there.
You stinky Frenchman, frog you.
All right, here we have Jagmeet Singh with some dirt rubbed into his eye.
Yeah,
some salt in the wound to add insult to injury of him like losing party status.
Yeah, Jagmeet, the former leader of the NDP, issued a big public statement on his Instagram story as apology to Drake because he was photographed attending the Kendrick Lamar and SZA show in Ontario.
Oh no.
Yeah, what happened at Elbows Up?
Yeah.
That means no American music either, Jagmeet. And he's like, I was only there for SZA. I don't care. I mean, I'm Team Drake all the way. We don't fuck with Kendrick in this house.
Yeah, a lot of people are taking this as an opportunity to dunk on Jagmeet.
Yeah. And they're like, OVO, the statement he says, OVO and Drake have lifted up this city and Canada. For me, it'll always be Drake over Kendrick. And that's how I feel.
Oh, and there you are.
There's my post. Same here. Elbows up. Yeah. I don't know why Elbows Up doesn't include music. Why doesn't it include music? I want to know.
Strap on, you fucking nuts. Oh my God. The President of Canada. Yeah, these comments are pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I think that even in Canada, there's still a lot of Drake hate, but ultimately what Kendrick did, I still find to be disgusting. I could go on my own little rant about the whole, you know, back and forth rap battle from last year, but at the end of the day, Kendrick said that Drake wasn't black enough because his mom was white and a Jew, which I think is gross. And I was like, is that not like one mental breakdown away from a Kanye comment?
Yeah, sounds very Kanye.
Like, hello, why is that okay for him to say that Drake is not like us because he's not black enough?
Yeah.
That's
I just
racist.
hate that whole mentality. Not
That's
like
gross.
us. Yeah.
And not like us, to me,
very American
mentality. Not like us
is
the reverse MAGA anthem, because the MAGA people, they like their Kid Rock and their, you know, their kind of racist undertone country music. But the reverse of that is where we had like stuff like when we were watching either the Oscars or the Grammys this year, and it was like giving 5 Grammys to Kendrick Lamar for Not Like Us. It's like you're living in like the universe where Kamala won or something. It's like, guys, ease back a little bit and recognize that Kendrick had a humongous global hit where he called Drake a pedophile without, you know, proof that now Drake is suing him for. Kendrick also said in a song that Drake had an illegitimate daughter because he was already outed for having an illegitimate son before that he, you know, had with a fan or something. He said that Drake has a daughter, but it's been a year and there's been no proof of it either. So it feels like the Not Like Us was the absolute inflection point of the whole, like, damn, that's crazy if true, where it just became, damn, that's crazy.
And true.
And the Americans just believe it at face value.
Damn, that's true.
So Kendrick really weaponized on how dumb Americans are now. So good for him, I guess.
That's a smart move, I guess.
Yeah. Really a big market if you think about it. Appealing to dumb American interests. Yeah. And telling every other country in the world and every other musician and creative and celebrity from every other country that you're not like us. America best. We're the
America
best.
number one.
Yeah. Not Like Us is just the... we're woke in the West, so I can actually say it. Not Like Us is like the woke MAGA anthem.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's like the opposite of
the exact opposite, but just as inclusive and bad.
Yeah.
We're still in Canada though. We're still going to some Canada stuff. This was a great little.
Polyev stood in front of a woman's house.
House of Commons.
House of Commons. Yes.
Yeah.
So of course, every time the Conservatives send one of their pretty little Barbie dolls up to speak, they're always like, actually, we
push their glasses
are going to point out something really obvious that we don't understand, and we're going to word it in such a way that makes it look like you've done something wrong. How do you respond? And then the Liberals lately have just been responding the same every time, which is, your leader isn't here because he wasn't elected because you're not popular. Shut up.
Good comeback.
Yeah, so let's play this.
That to the young Canadians that cannot afford a home, Mr. Speaker. For a decade, this Liberal government has continuously failed to address housing crisis with solutions.
Heisenberg, the Heisenberg crisis.
Shelby
you cannot afford a home during the Heisenberg crisis.
To add insult to injury, they've appointed a minister who has a significant interest in seeing housing prices soaring sky high. Mr. Speaker, this housing minister is actually
top.
The cross and white top. Oh yeah.
She really is. She just doesn't have the Republican makeup that is like essential. You know, all the fillers,
the facelift.
Yeah, she's almost there. Not quite. Good job.
Actually, part of the problem. Mr. Speaker, how can Canadians actually trust a government that cannot lower housing costs and a minister who has personal interest in keeping prices high and young Canadians in the basement?
I do like that she kind of called out Gregor Robertson a little bit by calling him the housing minister that has interests. He does. He owns property. But
point for the Conservatives there, I guess.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians remember when Pierre Poilievre stood in front of a woman's house, a Canadian women's house in Niagara Falls and called it a shack. I remember when Pierre Poilievre stood in this house and called the co-op where I grew up Soviet-style housing. Now, if that wasn't enough, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are stigmatizing modern, modular, affordable housing as shipping containers. Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives have voted against every single measure to support lower-income families to be able to access affordable housing. And, Mr. Speaker, it's people like me that grew up in the type of housing that those Conservatives want to insult. But that's pretty ironic given that despite not getting reelected, Mr. Speaker, Pierre Poilievre continues to live in taxpayer-funded government housing.
And that's how they get the point. I love that the Conservatives just snap and go like, you can hear them in the background just like moaning.
Barking like seals.
But yeah, it's that easy. You guys can't be expected to land a single dig at the opposition when your own party leader is basically wandering the woods. Like
the fucking Sasquatch.
They're so deeply unserious right now, the Conservative Party in Canada. But when I already went on.
When they pass a bill that
when I already went on my tirade,
when
the Liberals are basically the red Conservatives now, it seems like
small C Conservatives.
Yeah. Well, good clap, good and point for the Conservatives to get Gregor Robertson. God knows he deserves it. So.
Also complaining about how modern low-income housing is like a box. I mean, that is kind of true. Well, I know from personal experience.
What they're complaining about isn't even the 40, 60 story, $2 million a unit condos that no one wants to buy that they keep building that are just sitting empty. Like they're talking about low income, they're talking about the modular housing that's assembled offsite and then sort of brought and dropped into places and saying that's still more independence than a person living in a condominium gets. So I don't really have a problem with it at all. As long as it's not towers. I hate towers. I've been very open about that in all of my political ambitions that I hate towers. So,
all right. So we're jumping a tiny bit ahead. We have a whole section later on about the whole situation in the
Middle East,
the Mediterranean region.
Yeah, as our sort of bouncing off point to the rest of the world, because there are other countries out there, you guys. You don't need to comment about it. We know. I know that, Canada is the best and the only country on the planet, but sometimes there are others. And so to get us to that segment, we have this clip of Mark Carney, our beloved prime minister, saying that his vision for a Palestine that can live in harmony with Israel is a Zionist Palestine, a Palestine that recognizes Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state only for the Jews and for no one else to be given equal rights in that country.
Asking Palestinians to adopt the political ideology of their oppressors.
Which, if anyone is confused, Zionism is not Judaism. Zionism is not the Jewish faith. Zionism in the modern Israel was actually founded by atheists because, and saying this would probably get some people to be like, you're anti-Semitic, but it's literally historical fact that largely the creation of Israel was because that there were atheists in Europe that said, hey, let's just get them off this continent. Let's just put them somewhere that's kind of relevant to their faith. And that's essentially why Israel was founded to be the way that it is.
But you'll talk to Orthodox rabbis and they'll be like, the Jews aren't even supposed to have a homeland. That's the whole point.
That is the whole point.
Yeah. Israel is very much not real.
It is not.
This
is what Carney said about it.
And what will you do? What strikes you as the most important thing to do next?
Well, I think when you have, first, the core question, can there be a lasting peace in the Middle East without peace in Gaza that takes into account Gaza and West Bank effectively working on a path to a Palestinian state? You use several adjectives. I would agree with all of those, and living side by side in security with Israel, a Zionist, if you will, Palestinian state that recognizes the right of Israel to exist, not just to exist, but to prosper and not live in fear.
Palestine to exist.
We can't have peace unless we move towards that.
Israel is trying so desperately hard to let you know that they exist.
Yeah.
They do, in fact, exist. Oh, we are aware. But what about Palestine, though? You know?
Yeah, and I think now we can fully kind of segue into the rest of the world, because that question of what you're asking is very reminiscent of a conversation that went extremely viral over the last few weeks, which was an interaction between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, where he made something of a very similar argument.
Oh, we'll get there. Don't worry, we will definitely get there.
We will be getting there.
But first of all,
we're in the rest of the world.
Yay! So here's a little Nazi coding for you right off the bat, allegedly, maybe.
Yeah, a few big things happened. We're going to start, of course, with the bloated neighbor, America.
The bloated, fat, stinky, rotten orange neighbor.
Yeah. And Trump on Flag Day had a big gay old parade for himself and his birthday to honor the United States military, and as well decided to put up 2 new flagpoles at the White House because the White House didn't have enough flags, apparently.
Apparently not, yeah.
And so the perfect height to have these new flagpoles is, of course, 88 feet.
88 foot.
And for those who don't know, 88 is largely considered a dog whistle for Nazism or white nationalism, because
what's the 8th letter of the alphabet?
H. And so double H
stands for Heil something.
Yeah, just look up the Kanye West song about it and you'll figure it out. But yeah, so is this a dog whistle, or is 88 feet really the best height to put a flagpole? I don't know. Vote in the comments. I don't think Trump made this decision himself. There's much more evil and much more openly white nationalist people around him that probably
are smart enough to do something like this.
Probably just told him that this was the best height. The best height.
So yeah, happy Flag Day! Woo!
Which was a few weeks ago now.
Yes.
But this picture on screen, posted by the State Department, the Department of Defense, has 2 Russian flags beside the American flag. I assume because they just think red, white, and blue. It's the only America has those colors, right? If America's the best. No, well, whether this is I would almost consider this way more of a dog whistle than the flagpole thing, because this is like on their like social media, and for them to just not know that that's the Russian flag is either embarrassing or a deliberate decision.
Yeah.
So yeah. So happy Flag Day to Russia, America.
Also, it's almost Canada Day, so happy Canada Day as well.
Yes.
It might be Canada Day when this episode's uploaded, or it'll be right after. So yes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Salute the flag. Next Tuesday is Canada Day.
Yes. Happy early Canada Day.
Woohoo!
Or on or after Canada Day. Yay. We're recording this at the end of June. Anyway, back to America, I guess. Ugh. So today, there's been a lot of talk about the big, beautiful bill.
Big, beautiful
because
bill.
Trump wanted to get this pushed through before the U.S. Independence Day, before 4th of July. He really wanted to get this pushed through. But for the last few days and weeks, the Republicans have been quite divided on this. We've seen some like Josh Hawley or Lisa Murkowski say, we don't really know if we want to support this. But then today, they voted for it. So whether or not this ends up dying within the next couple days, because this is the crunch time period right now, the Republicans tried to push through the bill without without even reading it. And Chuck Schumer and the Democrats were able to get the parliamentarian in the Senate to read every page of the bill. So that's what's happening right now. So they're delaying the vote essentially because the Republicans are too stupid to read their own bill, and we don't.
I imagine that happens a lot, actually.
Yes. And like when Marjorie Taylor Greene, the MAGA crazy lady, posts online that she's like, I didn't know that this provision was in the bill. Otherwise, I wouldn't have voted for it. It's like, but that's your job, though.
Yeah.
So you're being no one is on your side. Like, yeah, guys, don't you agree with me? I wouldn't have voted for this if I knew this was in there. Okay. So then you shouldn't have your job then?
Yeah.
So
what are you even doing here?
Here are a couple other little highlights from this big, beautiful bastard of a bill. 17 million Americans would be cut from healthcare, and I believe the number is something like
holy shit, that's a lot.
$700 billion is being slashed from Medicare and Medicaid. 30% higher electricity costs, largely as a result of the reduction of green energy subsidies. So because solar, wind, and hydro are going to be essentially defunded in this bill, those customers who are paying for the energy they receive that is generated by those means will be paying more because those, things have been removed from the bill. But don't worry, they've re-added coal subsidies. Yeah. And there's rumors that Trump is thinking about making asbestos legal again. Everyone's favorite and most healthy wall stuffing ingredient.
Yeah, there's asbestos on this ceiling right now. Maybe this building is definitely old enough.
It could be.
Yeah. Millions of manufacturing and construction jobs gone.
Yeah, and that's largely a result of Biden's infrastructure bill that passed a couple of years ago, which gave more money to red states so that they could actually develop their infrastructure and improve it some. The new bill largely slashes a lot of those allocated funds, so that's why those jobs are being destroyed. It's the biggest ever cut in food assistance for families, kids, and veterans. SNAP is being defunded crazily.
Meals on Wheels is long gone.
Yep. Because, Jesus would never have wanted to feed the poor.
Never.
And I love it when people wearing cross necklaces are the ones doing that, because it really says that they love Jesus. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the deficit's going up by several trillion dollars.
If they can't even read their own bills that they're passing through through the government, why would you expect them to read the Bible?
Yeah, exactly.
That's even longer, right?
Americans don't know how to read.
Yeah.
This is not related to anything, but I saw a funny tweet today that was like, when the Cold War was happening and stuff, the Soviets were pretty good at finding who the American spies were, because the Americans, just like in Inglourious Bastards, where you have the scene where the guy holds up the three like this, but Europeans do this. Mm-hmm. Americans also really love to lean on stuff. So they would just like have these, like a bunch of people just like leave them outside, and then they would just like see who is like leaning and who is like actually standing. I don't know. It's not related to anything, but it's just, I think it goes to show you that whenever presented an opportunity, the Americans are going to like take the easy way
I
out.
like leaning on stuff.
I like leaning on stuff too, but if you're like a soldier, lazy. You should probably be standing.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. And then, of course, the last little note here is that trillions in tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. This is all still true from the first Trump term. It was always about tax cuts for the wealthy and the 1%. We all know this is what America cares about.
Yeah, removing wind and solar and adding coal to tax credits.
It's just full on Joker shit. Like seriously, guys, are the Americans going to protest? Like, is there anything?
No.
I really hope that people start getting more conscious about this. They're
too busy and they're lazy boys eating cheeseburgers. It's too cozy.
Yeah, they went out and protested one time. But I'll tell you who is getting their shall we say political hits in. The right continues to be the bloodthirsty bunch that we know them to be, as just about a week ago 2 Democrats in Minnesota were killed. Melissa Hortman, I believe was her name.
Melissa Hortman
and her husband,
John Hoffman, and his wife Yvette. Oh,
and another state legislator was injured. John Hoffman. So Melissa Hortman and her husband died, and John Hoffman and his wife were injured by this gunman who had a long list of names of people that he wanted to, pursue. And the list was primarily full of Democrats. It had people like Tim Walz on it.
Yep.
And the Republican right has been trying to spin this again, lying just for the fun of it, to say that this was a left-wing act. This was a left-wing terrorist. When
that's just not true.
But this man has not even been charged with terrorism yet. which is the insane thing. So it's like we're going to charge, or not we, because we're better than Americans, but the American judicial system would sooner charge Luigi Mangione with terrorism for, gunning down a billionaire CEO that has killed thousands of people on his own. Just because he didn't know them doesn't mean he didn't do it. But this man who literally had a premeditated list of political adversaries that he wanted to kill, we don't charge him
a literal
with terrorism.
laundry list.
Yeah, we don't charge him with terrorism. No. So, literally, what does the rule of law mean in America anymore? Does it only matter if you are of the party that is wielding it in the party in power? Because that is completely the opposite of what equality in the eyes of the law is supposed to represent.
So it says that here the suspect is still at large. I think
they did catch him.
Yeah. So this article is a little old, but yeah. Politically charged and included anti-abortion sentiments. Oh yeah, this was definitely a left-wing killing.
And the Minnesota State House was divided so close between Democrats and Republicans that because of the death of this Democrat lawmaker, the Dems now only have a 1-seat majority in the state Senate. And that is largely what I think was considered to be the reason for these killings, was because the state legislatures are so 50-50 split that if just one of them dies, now the Republicans get the majority. Yep. And because of that, it is impossible to look at that killing without a political lens, because they knew exactly what they were doing. Yeah. And when the right says, no, that's a leftist that killed the Democrats, they are lying.
Lies. It's all lies.
They are making money from lying to you. So just make sure that, you're not being sold a bunch of crap from some online hustler that knows that they're making money from your anger and clicks. This was a post that I shared in our sort of pooling of weekly sources of stuff. But in the UK, it's a bit of a tradition that if someone dies or is killed in office, that they will let someone of the same party run unopposed in the by-election so that they can be re-given that seat. I'm very curious what will happen in Minnesota now that this has happened. I actually haven't looked.
Probably not this.
Well, I haven't looked into it at all yet. I'm very curious, actually, because, if there will be an attempt to have a bit of a, I don't know what the word would be, a political reconciliation moment where the Republicans in the state say, you know what? This killing may have given us a political opportunity, but we will not take it. So I don't know. I don't think, and I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I haven't done any research into this yet. I don't know if Tim Walz has declared the by-election date or what's going to happen, but maybe this is something I should keep an eye on, or at least some tabs on, because they will have to have a by-election to fill that seat, unfortunately. So will the Republicans respect the rule of law?
No.
Moving
they
on.
Won't. Oh, a lovely horrific story coming from the States here.
Yes. As the U.S. continues to feign interest in the rights of human beings and women around the world, and using it as their cause to justify things like bombing Iran, which we have yet to really get into.
Oh, it's getting there. Don't worry. We'll get there.
There was a really silly discussion on The View from a few days ago where you had these, rich, privileged American women being like, whoa, the poor women of Iran, they're so uneducated, but the literacy rate in Iran is actually higher than the US. And do the women have more rights in Iran than in the US? I don't know, but not helping the US's defense in this argument is the fact that Adriana Smith, a black woman from Georgia, has been dead, brain dead, in a hospital since February of this year. And they've kept her plugged in, on tubes, basically the worst kind of way to quote unquote live, a way that is, generous, a way that people have nightmares about living. Mm-hmm. They've kept this poor woman on tubes because she died pregnant. Yep. She had a baby.
Gotta keep the baby alive.
In her womb. Yep. And you can't kill the baby because that's abortion. And Georgia, you can't have an abortion.
Even if you're dead.
Yeah, even if you're dead, the doctors would sooner let you die and then try to save the baby after. But yeah, she did die back in February. She had no brain activity at all. And they've removed the baby from her only within the last week or so because her body was literally starting to decay.
Wow.
And I don't know, something tells me that, if that baby is still plugged into her, like they had her plugged into the equipment in the hospital, and the baby is getting like dead cells pumped in from like, umbilical cord and shit, is that healthy? Is that going to make for a good, life?
This baby is definitely going to have problems in life if it makes it that far.
Who's taking care of this kid? Like,
definitely not the Republican state. Definitely not that. They want to shit the babies out, but as soon as they're out, they're just completely done with them and don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, pro-life until you're born.
Yeah, this fucking guy here. All life is worth saving. Now let's pray the baby survives. Yeah, these comments are something else.
Well, I mean, look at his icon. This what we're looking at.
The Gen X Baptist.
Very, very white coated.
Yeah, white, very pale. Yeah, no kidding.
Like this white man with a beard and sunglasses is like, hell yeah, dead black lady. Who cares? Okay, let's help that baby.
Damn. Yeah.
A lot of liars in the comments here. I'm still on Twitter /X because I've been on it since 2008, and I just want to be there when the site finally dies. But it's not like it's a great place to be right now.
No.
It's not I mean, there's really no such thing as a positive social media experience if we're being real. The companies don't make money if you're having
not
a good
since
time.
like the late 2000s, really. The internet's been dead for a very long time.
No one has had a good social media experience since you went on your friend's MySpace and got exposed to a song on their profile that you'd never heard before. The social media has been dead since they stopped letting you put a theme song on your page that plays automatically when people visit it.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yep. So this is a screenshot.
Oh, look, there
here.
you are again. Wow, look at that.
Yep.
Okay, so we protested across the country. Now what? What does it mean to actually form a movement? I thought that holding my sign that said, Trump, you sucked in Home Alone 2. I thought that was the same as political activism.
Yeah, I really like this comment here.
Online leftists are beyond stupid. The fact that normie libs are asking this question means they're now open to the notion of direct action. But instead of seizing this ideological vacuum, you hop on a social media site owned by a fascist billionaire to mock them.
Yeah, this guy knows what's up.
Yeah, this is very, very based. This is woke. This is correct.
Mm-hmm. This is our cup of tea.
Yeah. And this is what we started this podcast to be, was to sort of look at the right and say, you don't actually represent the rule of law. You don't actually respect or read the Constitution in your American country, or the right in this country where they just don't have ideas in the traditional sense. They have the slogans and the talking points, but we don't have that cult of personality here for any leader. We've never really had that in Canada. But the same thing, we levy criticism at the left, because while it's all about, these big performative gestures and these grand movements of like, yeah, I went out between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m. on this one date with a sign that I made that might not actually be that serious. Like I love that stupid Trump, you sucked in Home Alone 2 sign. It's like, great. We're really back in 2016. No one's learned anything. Got him. It's so frustrating. And that's what we're talking about, is the left is not able to actually bring themselves together coherently behind an ideology to counteract the domination of the right now. There is a future that people can believe in, where we actually lift up people, and living is not just a 4-job grind where you have no free time anymore. Like, there is a future that we should be actively working towards and selling to the voting public. And I'm talking like literally going back to the 40s and 50s, not in the racism, but in the 95% tax rate,
tax cut
that they used to
tax
do.
Breaks, yeah.
That was when the country, or broadly North America, was the most equal. And we have absolutely spiraled. We're not going to talk about it specifically, but like Jeff Bezos renting Venice to have his private wedding. Like, is that not like getting a little extreme? Like a little bit? Like, I'm not saying there needs to be a French Revolution, but wood is available at Home Hardware.
I'm sure someone up there knows how to make a guillotine.
Yeah, you could probably do that pretty easily, but
a hobby maker out there somewhere.
It's incredibly frustrating, and we've talked about this a lot.
For the record, I don't want to say that either of us are centrists, even though we criticize both sides. We're not centrists. We're both leftists.
Yeah.
But, some people say we're not left enough, and that's the problem.
I'm so far left that Americans literally think that I'm MAGA. and it's ridiculous.
I don't know how the fuck that
There
works.
was that idiot that posted that said that I went from Bernie to MAGA. And I thought that was a very interesting and also a really bad observation. The person who said this was also like a performative leftist, but they're an American and not the brightest tool in the shed, you could say. But for them to say that I went from Bernie to MAGA also fundamentally misunderstands the appeal of Bernie. So, and I talk about this in a recent video I did on on my YouTube channel, but you know, it's kind of a separate thing. It's not a political YouTube channel. It's a furry YouTube channel, but there's a lot of parallels between, you know, what, people that go into, say, like a niche internet sub-community, like a furry or whatever, and people that engage in really hyper specific political fanaticism, is that, you know, to say, oh, you went from Bernie to MAGA. Bernie had the appeal because he didn't have the establishment backing of the Hillary of the time or of the Joe Biden of 2020.
And neither did Trump.
And Trump never did have the political backing until he became the president.
Yeah.
But to say like, oh, it went from Bernie to MAGA, a lot of Bernie people actually did go to MAGA. And it's not that I'm saying that was the correct decision for them. It's that what Bernie actually did was he shed a light on how young people felt so disenfranchised and disillusioned by the system in place, the system that ended up nominating Hillary Clinton instead of him. And so to say, oh yeah, I went from Bernie to MAGA, I think the majority of people that backed Bernie probably either voted for Trump or didn't vote. Yeah. I think the people that backed Bernie did not vote for Hillary because she represented everything that they were against. So I say,
why the hell would you do that?
I say this in my video on my furry YouTube channel. I said, how can I, as someone on the left, or like not you in this example, but like me and that person who criticized me and called me, you know, from Bernie to MAGA, how can we both self-identify as being on the left, yet have such a fundamental misunderstanding of what it actually means to be on the left, to be a progressive, to understand the things that you are claiming to care about or literally campaigning for? You have a fundamental misunderstanding. And how are you going to pull a coalition of people together to oppose the ruling majority if you can't even agree on what your quote unquote side stands for?
You have to step down off your pedestal and, like, you know, extend the olive branch.
You have to.
There's too many high and mighty people on the left that just aren't willing to do that because they're on their own little moral crusade.
Yep. It's,
you know, that's why SJ, as social justice warrior, I like that term so much, even though it is a little outdated and 2010s coded, as you call it. But, you know,
well, I think that's why I've been using it more. Yeah. I use it more because I feel like now in this moment, people, or at least what I hope, is that people are more politically active and engaged. They understand the words' meaning that they're using for the most part. At least I'm hoping that people are more conscious of that, because in the 2010s, and for most of this left-right sort of divide that's been ever increasing on the internet over the last decade or so, is that you have these words every so often, like woke, or, you know, what are all these ones, like libtard or whatever, SJW, all these terms that for
snowflake,
the most for the most time were used by the right to smear and dismantle the left and make us seem irrational or like we're not reasonable human beings. But now we are understanding what these words mean, and it's why we call the podcast Woke in the West, is because it's like, well, what does woke actually mean? And you can be woke in a good way or woke in a bad way, and it's the same as pretty much everything else. You could be a social justice warrior in a good way that actually gets things done, or you could be a social justice
champion
warrior,
of social justice,
or you could be one in a bad way, like that the people who were bullying that poor Save-A-Fox girl into killing herself like a week ago.
I don't know if I pulled up a news article for that, but yes, that is also a tragic thing.
But that's like a good example. It's because like no one on the right was hating her for like, oh, you're, you know, saving money to help like wild animals. It was people who think that they were on the right side of a moral crusade being like, actually, you didn't take care of that animal properly, and I am now going to spend the next 5 years of my life bullying you into what goal? Well, we just
unaliving yourself.
Yeah. So it's like, when does that line stop? People need to realize that you can't just be jealous of everyone else having, you know, a positive light or a stuff going on around them. We have to make a coherent group that's not just about, you know, shutting down people or shutting down discussions or ideas just because we might have a small disagreement, and then making it our life's vendetta to unseat or, dismantle or deplatform or whatever it is this person. If they have not committed some sort of heinous crime that you've got the proof of, and we're talking like, the full like Dr. whatever that Twitch guy was, the guy that talked to
Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah, like that. Like that's way more provable. Like the site he was on, like told him to bug off and all that stuff. Like that is when you can actually like rally people behind it. But yeah, that bullying of that poor girl recently by a lot of people in communities that me and Eric both share that, like to masquerade as though that they're, bastions of the progressive left, but you're still ultimately bullying someone on the internet that you disagree with. And it doesn't matter if it's because they're not left enough or it's because they're not right enough or you're on
not
the left.
Taking care of foxes well enough.
Right. Yeah. And ultimately we've kind of given up the just tried and true label of, you're a bully. You're just an asshole. And hidden behind the whole, well, no, I am doing this because it's correct. I am the correct one. So I have to be the one to to set them straight.
I can be a bully as long as I'm a correct bully.
Exactly. And I can harass someone into killing themselves because I am the right one. Mm-hmm. I am correct. And that is cancer for political discussion or even just living in a society with other people. That mentality is not good.
No.
But that's what the internet has.
So yeah, that's what's going on in the US in particular. But now it's time to broaden our scope.
There's a war.
There's a war going on, guys. Didn't
and
you
remember
know?
That Iran didn't initiate it.
No.
We have
Israel's definitely 100% did strike first in this scenario.
I have a screenshot on or I have a post on screen right now from the Iran military account on Twitter that said, remember, we didn't initiate it. And it's got 750,000 likes, 772,000 likes, and over 128 million views, which is insane. But literally, Iran didn't start it. And for some reason, the general media isn't taking the same argument that they gave to Israel.
They're towing the same Israel has a right to defend itself.
Yeah, Israel has a right to defend itself, even if they struck first.
Yeah.
This is like when I would get bullied on by like a white kid at school. It's like if I hit him, then I'm in trouble. But he can beat on me all lunch break with the teachers watching. They're fine with it.
Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff here talking about this whole conflict we're going on.
As soon as Israel fired those opening shots at Iran, you had a lot of people on the right in America jumping on the hate train, bringing out that post 9/11 Islamophobia to
bring
be like,
it on.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham, everyone's favorite closeted South Carolina senator, saying game on, pray for Israel. Israel fired the first shot and he says game on and pray for Israel. Is that not just demented? And I have on screen right now a retweet by famous drag queen Katya, which has over 165,000 likes. And she just says, life is not a joke and war is not a game, but you clearly don't give a shit about public service or human life. You're nothing but an abhorrent Zionist death cult cheering soulless ghoul. Just quit politics and focus on something you really love. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe sucking dick after dick in a public bathroom, you despicable, closeted, faggoty piece of shit. And, again, we're both queer, so we're allowed to say these things. And Katya is also a drag queen.
That's our word. Yeah.
And she's also correct. Lindsey Graham is absolutely a closeted homosexual, as 100%. They would say in the US.
Yeah.
And it sucks that instead of being happy with embracing his, true self, he is instead just going full hardline right-wing Republican, groveling to Trump's feet, begging for the war machine.
Instead of being happy with his dick-sucking self.
Yeah. It's sad that people choose political posturing over their own happiness. But that's why the true happiness is in forcing everyone to embrace their own happiness politically.
So what's the latest news in this whole conflict? Because I know that the U.S. bombed Iran's nuclear site and set them back a little bit. So what's happened since then?
The U.S. dropped bunker busting bombs on Fordo and a couple other bases and nuclear enrichment sites that Iran had. Trump went out on TV and did his national what's it called when the president briefs like the people. I forget what that's called.
Just a televised address.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, yeah. That's basically what it's called. So yeah, Trump went on, had a televised address, and said, "We have completely obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities." But then the Pentagon came out a few days later and said, "No, you didn't actually." And if anything, the U.S. strikes on Iran only set them back by a few months at most.
No.
So
they're going to have nukes again, and this time they're going to be pissed at the U.S.
We don't even know if they had nukes. We've been operating under the pretense that we assume that they will have nukes at some point in the future. Israel and Netanyahu specifically have been saying as much for like 2 decades, at least at this point. They keep saying like Iran has been months away from a nuclear weapon since like the 90s. So they haven't proven anything. And we were almost going into another like suspecting they've got weapons of mass destruction thing a la Iraq, which I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that most of the people on the planet today were alive when that happened.
Yes.
Okay. So
I remember it clear as day.
Just trying to make sure that the public isn't going to be duped again. And I think that's part of why the Zionist Israeli regime and their propensity for taking the first shot at all their neighbors and being the most hated country in a global pariah state, their narrative that they are the victim is falling apart before our eyes in real time. And it's because we've already lived through things like Iraq. We already lived through the government, like previous administrations, lying to the American people because they have something else that they'd like to accomplish in the region. So I think that's why a lot of this military action is falling on deaf ears, and we're not getting the whole like salute to the boys in blue because they bombed Iran, a country that had, and like in response, Iran fired 14 missiles at a U.S. base in Qatar. So you wanted more updates. Of those 14 missiles, 13 were intercepted, 1 missed. But then Trump also said that Iran had given him the warning that they were going to fire at the base. So that is interesting. And also, is that not like, like he just seemed to let it happen? There's a clip of Trump talking about it. And he's like, yeah, they told me they'd fire at 1 a.m. And I said, okay. And he says like, yeah, we got all the people off the base so that no one would be hurt. It's so like, I don't understand. Is that showing strength as a world leader to be told by a country that you consider adversarial, we're going to bomb your military base, and for you as the leader of that country to say, okay, just give us some time. Thanks for the heads up. We're going to move everyone
We'll take
out.
care of it. Don't worry.
Like, is that a sign of strength? I don't think so. Here's a tweet from a rather extreme source.
Nick Fuentes,
who said Israel is officially attacking Iran and they are trying to drag the United States into yet another one of their wars. Never forget who is responsible. And it's simple stuff like this where it's like, yes, does it suck to agree with a Nazi? Absolutely. Yes. Is the Nazi objectively correct here that Israel is the aggressor trying to pull their big brother America into a fight on their behalf because they don't have the weapons to do it? Yes.
Although when he says never forget who is responsible, we know what he's talking about. He's not talking about Zionism so much as just the Jews in general. So, fuck him for that. But on the whole, yes, I do unfortunately agree with Nick J. Fuentes on this tweet.
Yeah, because Nick J. Fuentes realizes that if there is a draft, that his ass is getting called.
Oh, yeah.
So...
And he's going to have to end up fighting for Israel. I bet he's going to love that.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be a big fan.
No. But yeah, I don't think we're going to hear very many pro-conflict country songs this time around. We're not going to hear any, we'll put a boat in your ass.
Where were you when Israel fired at Iran first?
Where were you when Israel struck first?
See, that would be a song that I'd like to see get made.
Yeah. Trey and Matt, get on it.
Yeah, please. Why aren't there like more songs being written like Born in the USA nowadays that are just like, I love those songs that are like disguised as like pro-America songs, but are very much not. Rockin' in the Free World and Born in the USA are the best two examples of
because
that.
all the best artists are getting old and dying and nobody can replace them.
Yeah, and they're getting old and conservative.
Okay, here's the good shit here.
Yeah,
there's a lot of gems in
briefly
here.
mentioned that there was a big Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz spat earlier in the month. I don't know if I'd recommend people sit through the full 2-hour thing on their own, but if
I don't know if I can handle that much Tucker Carlson in one sitting.
If you did, you might find yourself wondering, when did Tucker Carlson become such a fighter against Israel of all things. Because Ted Cruz is, as he claims, the biggest Israel advocate in the U.S. Senate, which is a very bold title. And Tucker is just not standing for it because isn't the Trump regime supposed to be America first? And that has sent so many pro-Israel politicians on both the right and the left into an absolute spiral because it contradicts pretty much what they stand for in such a way that they have almost no explanation for it.
So I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel
From AIPAC.
Million.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate. And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times, AIPAC, I wish were much more effective. Like, they're folks online who are in the fever.
Can I turn captions on? No. Oh, well.
Weird.
Swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC.
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No, not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's
when was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister?
I love the Ronald Reagan picture in the background, by the way.
And
just
Ted acknowledges that.
His specter just lingering in the background of these two people.
Yeah, all the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC.
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive that gets
a difference. And like you mentioned the Reagan thing too, in the full 2-hour talk between them, and if you did want to watch it like a smaller abridged version of it, Hassan Piker, that's the go-to leftist guy, he did a short video where he sort of went over what I think are the most significant parts of this. But with the Reagan thing specifically, is that Ted both argues that Reagan was a non-interventionist that put America first, but then also wouldn't say anything about the Iran-Contra affair or any of that, which Reagan absolutely was an interventionist who literally exercised America's strong and soft power all over the world during his term. But that's why I said, like, if you did watch it, you might get some things out of there. Like, it's a deeply fascinating insight into just how broken Ted Cruz's brain is in reconciling the fact that Ronald Reagan wasn't an interventionist, even though he absolutely intervened repeatedly.
No. I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government, and it's not. It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
What does that mean?
So it has nothing to do with the foreign government.
It wants America and Israel to be closely allied.
Okay, but it's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country.
So that's not true at all. And if
it's not true.
No.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have with the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the government of Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC because AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure. Like if.
So I'm not mad about that. There are a million countries that lobby Washington. I like a lot of those countries, including Israel.
But AIPAC are Americans. They're not Israelis.
Hold on. There are tons of Americans who lobby on behalf of foreign governments. I know them. I'm related to some of them. I know how it works. I'm from here. So my question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah, and why
aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
The American Israeli. And you have to wonder, I would love to see the argument posed similarly to a Ted Cruz type. And the only reason that, Tucker Carlson's able to get this close to Ted Cruz to ask questions that are this probably way more cutting than he had anticipated is because he's seen as this big right wing figure. And it's realizing that maybe not all of the things people are mad or concerned about in today's society have a perfectly strict right wing or left wing binary. Is that Do you care about human rights? Okay, then you're probably not on the side of Israel. Do you care about foreign countries lobbying your own government? And that's the position that a right-winger can take, because if you say AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee, is not a foreign lobby, what if you had the MAPAC, the Mexican American Political Action Committee? Is that not political lobbying? Well, they're, it's because they put America first, I guess. American Israeli, duh, I should have known that.
Israel first. I mean, America first.
Yeah, exactly. They're falling over themselves.
We got a couple more clips from this interview because it is a very
to topple.
Humiliated.
How many people?
Ted?
Very rare.
You're gonna blow up a country? Do you know how many people live there?
People living around, by the way.
I don't know the population
at all.
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
Genuine shock.
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well,
this is one of the few instances where the Tucker surprised face actually works.
Yeah, because it's a genuine gotcha, and Ted is literally squirming.
Yeah,
kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia.
They're Persians.
It's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
They are Arabian.
The Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help.
Whoopsie.
I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Genuine, like, smile. Is that TCN? Is that like a Tucker Carlson network?
Carlson network.
Like literally? Oh, that's his.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess it's his thumbnail, but it's not his account that we're looking at. Yeah. Wow. It sort of reminds me of that Theo Vaughn clip where he was talking to Vance, and these are the only ways that these people lower their guard. They're only willing to talk to people that they think are safe. And so they go into their little podcasting room, and then they accidentally get skewered because they're like, oh crap, this isn't just going to be it's not
just going to be a softball.
It's not just a softball glaze fest. Like, I'm in government and I actually have to talk about the things that I do, and I'm in government.
Whoopsie. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to work today.
Israel controlling our...
Do you think that... It's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody. I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries,
hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that. And I have...
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
I can speak for
on behalf not simply of myself, but on my many Jewish friends who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran or the
if I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel. I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period. Okay. Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from. So that's my position. That does not make me an anti-Semite. And shame on you for suggesting otherwise. And I mean that.
And I mean that. And, you know, I don't know if I actually said it in the recording of this podcast so far, but this interview was not actually recorded in like Tucker Carlson's podcasting space. He brought the equipment to Senator Ted Cruz's office.
Right into the lion's den.
This is his office. And he's getting had like this. And Tucker is saying, shame on you. And I can speak for myself.
So Ted Cruz just has a picture of Ronald Reagan. Like a painting of Ronald Reagan in his office.
Because he loves him.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yep. We desperately need some media on the left that is willing to ask such hard-hitting questions.
Also, just a quick little meme here.
Yeah,
we're Israeli influencer here.
I think we're fully into our trash segment now. Yeah. This is a great clip of Israeli running while filming themselves fleeing from what is likely a siren or like a missile or whatever, you know, Israel. They got all those bomb shelters everywhere, so the citizens know where to run for safety. But it doesn't mean that they don't feel safe enough to run while filming themselves for social media. And you get beautiful moments like this.
Yeah. It's great to watch. Let's watch one more time here.
Yeah.
Bonk.
That's amazing. That's literally good. Do you think that God put that street light there?
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is a great Freudian slip here.
Yeah, a little bit more of Israel getting clowned on here, this time by the U.S. spokeswoman.
Israel's government has also spread chaos, terror, and suffering throughout the region. Iran's government has also spread chaos, terror, and suffering throughout the region.
Yeah, good save.
I mean, both of those are true.
Good save.
Gotta love it. Yeah, so now just some more clips.
And this was a great clip. There's always lots of like committee hearings in the U.S. Senate, you know, different departments. But because of the Trump admin, so many of these people that have been appointed are showing up without really any of the documentation that they need. You know, we talked about that clip before of the guy going to the budget or the FBI without the budget.
No budget to speak of. Yeah.
And so this is a great clip of Democrat Senator Jon Ossoff from the great state of Georgia. Hey, we were just talking about Georgia. Wow. And how it's a right-wing Republican shithole. But they, in 2020, I think it was, elected 2 Democrat senators. So Georgia's one of those states that's red with blue senators. And Ossoff, this gentleman here, really said something that cut into the Trump appointee. I forget which department, but his name is Vote. Vote. Yeah, like Vought.
Just like the boys.
Well, they call him Vote, but yeah, it's spelled
the same way. Yeah.
But yeah, the way that Ossoff just really states this clear as day, I love. So like, let's just play this because it's.
I am grateful for the commitment you've made to come to Georgia and visit the CDC and sit down with those employees. Thank you, Madam
Biden
Chair.
Administration.
I don't want to hear about the Biden administration.
Well,
you're here on behalf of the Trump administration.
I feel like he was holding back a smile.
I am grateful
just
for the
cuts him off completely, and he just leaves him speechless.
Yeah, because his time is over. He's like, oh, Biden. No, you're here on behalf of the Trump administration. So you're going to answer questions pertaining to the Trump administration. And if you don't have the answers to my questions, your time is finished. Thank you. And it reminds me a lot of like what Ted Cruz just said in that interview we just watched. Because he said like, if you had something to ask about the Ayatollah or Iran, you got asked 2 questions about Iran, actually, and you didn't know the answer to either of them. So if he was like given the softest of softballs where it's like, okay, well, what do you have to say to get off your chest? He'd probably just be like, well, Iran is a danger to America.
Iran dangerous.
And Ayatollah is a danger.
We got to bomb Agrabah.
Yeah, we have to bomb Agrabah.
Oh, this is a good
Another great right-wing clip. No. You know, there's a lot of, we don't talk about it as much anymore because, you know, people don't really have the attention span to care about issues for all that long. But minimum wage is a thing that hasn't been raised in America for some time. Canada, we're doing okay a little bit, even though our cost of living is crazy. But in America, it's still $7 an hour.
Wow.
And so this brave brave Republican lawmaker said this.
Not every wage, and please hear me clearly on this, not every wage is designed to be a livable wage.
So if you work, you shouldn't be able to pay for things unless you work.
You should
more.
have to work like 4 jobs just to get by.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't just be able to work one job and be able to pay for everything.
There's a really old clip of Bush from the 2000s where he's talking to some lady and he's like, "Oh, you got 2-3 jobs only in America. Could you have the opportunity to do that?"
As if it's a good thing.
Yeah, way to again misunderstand exactly what people are believing the American dream to be. Boy, my dream coming to America is to work a job where I don't get paid enough to live. They should start putting that on the promotional material. Put that on some billboards in El Salvador or Kenya or whatever. See if that keeps people from coming.
Oh, it's our favorite.
Marjorie
Margarine Butterface Taylor Greene.
The gentleman yells, "No one loves veterans more than President Trump," and he's made that apparent. That's why
from the Planet of the Apes once the ape realizes it can smack the bone with the other thing. That's I think what Marjorie realized here.
Why he's working for peace,
Madam Chair,
right now.
it's not your time.
I'm the chair of this committee.
That's not how
I'm the chair.
Parliamentary procedure works.
You're not
Madam
recognized, Ms.
Chairwoman.
Stanbury.
You're not recognized
recognized
either. You can't just speak anytime you want.
I'm the chair of this committee.
That's not how it
Ms.
works.
Stansbury,
Madam-
you're not recognized.
Madam Chairwoman, that is not how
Ms. Stansbury, you're not recognized.
All day, but that's not how
Ms. Stansbury, you're not
parliamentary
recognized.
We're going to get you a Robert's
Ms.
Rules of
Stansbury,
Order
you're
and
not.
the
Point of
Ms.
order.
Stansbury, you're not recognized.
Point of order.
You're not recognized.
Point of order.
Point of order.
All right, Madam Chair, calm down. Let's move on.
Ms. Stansbury, you're not recognized. Point of order.
Just banging her gavel, and I like that the other lady's like, "That's not how this works. Just because you're the chair of the committee, you're out of order. You're out of order. Out of order."
Wow, that's got to be satisfying though, banging that gavel.
Yeah, that's why she's doing it. She's just like, "Oh, it feels so good."
It'd be so funny if it broke. It's just made of shoddy material. It just falls off. The gavel falls off.
If it broke, she should get a little piece of gavel shrapnel in her eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though we're kind of talking about memes, I talked about this before. But with the Doge cuts being passed in the U.S. House, the reason that stuff is passing so easily is because 3 Democrat seats are already vacant because members have died already this year. People that were over 70 when they were elected are already dead. And so even if the Democrats had the majority in the House since last November, they would have lost it already.
Yeah, that's
so that's bad. And maybe don't elect a bunch of, old crones.
I guess the reason why this particular part is in this section is because old Democrats are a bit of a meme.
Yeah, it's old.
Ancient, dusty bone fucking Democrats.
Which, I guess we didn't really talk about it in the Around the World section, but New York had a primary where the young people actually came out to vote for once.
Wow.
And Zoran Mamdani, the 33-year-old Democratic Socialist and New York Assemblyman, has been given, so far, the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York. Yes, congrats to the young socialist who has some brilliant policies like free buses and freezing the rent, and the billionaire class is already freaking out. And the billionaire class isn't strictly a part of one party or the other. In fact, there are billionaires in both parties. And as a result,
it's almost like both parties are bought and sold.
You've got a lot of Democrats right now that are not open about endorsing Zoran to be the mayor. Like the literal Democratic governor of New York State, Kathy Hochul, has refused to offer an endorsement for Zoran. Senator from New York, Kristen Gillibrand, who's a disgusting Zionist pig, has also not given an endorsement to Mamdani because he's a Muslim, right? So that means he's a terrorist, jihad.
Remember
We're
9/11?
really, literally back into post 9/11. I keep saying post 2011, but post 9/11 Islamophobia crap is the most acceptable form of bigotry in America today.
9/11. I said 9/11, 9/11.
And I hope that Zoran will win the race to be mayor in the winter or November, whenever it is. But it seems like the Democrat Party establishment is going to work tirelessly to rat fuck him like they did Bernie Sanders.
Oh yeah, they're gonna pull a Bernie for sure, or at least try to.
Bill Clinton endorsed Andrew Cuomo, which is like, wow. Gropers got gropers backs.
Yeah, gropers unite.
Here's another massive from Trump talking about how the next people that are going to get rounded up by ICE are the homegrowns. Ooh, what is that?
Are we close to seeing Mr. Kim here at the White House?
Could happen. I mean,
they talked about that yesterday with Mike Pompeo.
Yeah, I think it's something that could happen. Yeah. Hey, he's the head of a country, and I mean, he is the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different. Right. He speaks, and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same.
Well,
I got my Trump hot mic clip memory banks files mixed
there's
up.
So many of them.
Yeah, this is not that one about the homegrowns. This is about him after his failure of a military parade, which it was really bad. Go watch a video of a squeaking tank if you want to go find out. So Trump was complaining privately to somebody that he wanted his people to be respecting him like how the North Korean people respect Kim Jong-un and how they sit up at attention when he speaks.
Yeah.
So this is, again, just more Trump fawning over a, authoritarian.
Because that's what America is about. It's about the citizens standing to attention when the president speaks.
Yeah. America is about standing for the flag. What do you mean about what do you talk about freedom for?
Freedom? What's
Fuck off. Freedom to salute the flag.
Oh yeah, here this is the
This
last
is a mix of a meme and genuine horror, which is we're gonna have the hottest summer in human history this year, and to celebrate, the roads have decided to buckle underneath us as though some act of God to say,
it literally
hey guys,
rises up out of the ground as this person is driving.
This poor Honda does a freaking
boom
jump, get some serious airtime there in Missouri.
American infrastructure at its finest.
Well, it's more than just that, because it's not even that it's failing infrastructure. It's that the roads can't handle the heat of a planet where the people on it don't care that the temperature is rising faster than the things that they've constructed are meant to withstand.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So, good thing Trump took all that money out of the infrastructure bill. Yay. So,
all right. So that's the state of the world right now. Not good. I mean, it hasn't been good for a while.
It's great, actually.
It's great. Yeah.
No notes, actually. The world is great.
I think I shat myself.
All right, let's talk about some stuff that we watched recently. We watched the new vampire movie Sinners in a dying theater near our house.
In a dead theater.
Yeah, it is now officially dead.
Yeah, we had a nice low income.
Nice low income.
We had a nice low ticket cost theater that was like an independent family run theater that just closed. So we wanted to go see a movie there before it did. And the movie that they were showing that we both wanted to see was Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan, set in the American South, Reconstructionist South. So they're not slaves, just like in Song of the South, in case you were curious.
Yeah.
So you got a bunch of free black people fighting a bunch of crazy vampires.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot. It's like a cross between Oh Brother, Where Art Thou and From Dusk Till Dawn, which is the two movies that immediately spring to mind. And I really enjoyed this movie. I liked a lot of the music choices in this film. One thing I didn't like is I definitely felt the 2 hour and 2+ hour runtime right at the beginning, especially, and right at the end, because they did this really weird thing. Like they did like an extended post-credit sequence.
Yeah.
Where like they had like an ending scene, and then the credits start rolling, and then the scene keeps going. And like people were literally getting up to leave the theater.
People were really
and
confused.
they were turned around and were standing in the aisle as the scene was going on.
Yeah.
It was very bizarre.
Yeah, the pacing was a bit odd. I know Ryan Coogler has a history being a pretty good director. There were just a couple things that I thought could have been a little bit more tight about the storytelling in the film. I thought that once it really got going and you realized sort of the stakes and what the world around these folks is sort of about, that is a really cool sort of a stark moment. I think that's probably what most people are going to think of when they remember this movie, because I don't think most people are going to remember the long lead in, so to speak.
Michael B. Jordan was really good in both roles. He plays a pair of twin brothers. They're like sort of hucksters and gamblers who got lucky in Chicago and now are returning to their home down south to open up a little an all African American juke joint.
Yeah, that was the idea.
A fish fry as well, which I love me some fried fish.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the guy who played the Irish American sort of vampire immigrant guy was also really good. He had a couple really good lines, and I think that I forget, was Cedric the Entertainer in the movie, or was that his son? Because there was an actor that looked a lot like Cedric.
I don't think Cedric himself was, so it probably was his son.
Yeah, but very good movie.
Yes, I liked Sinners. I would probably give it a 7.
Solid 7. It could have been trimmed
closer
down
to a
bit.
6 than an 8. If it had a bit of a better edit, it probably would be a solid 8.
Mm-hmm. I didn't like that ending though. That extended ending. I don't know what they could have done.
I think that if Sinners had like a producer credit from like Jordan Peele, it might have been quite a bit tighter and quite a bit more like metaphorical. But it was also very much kind of like, yes, like, wow, it's a cool idea to see like, a vampire kind of or a horror movie period set in that time. But
yeah, love the setting, love the 1930s kind of.
I almost feel like they didn't quite go into it as much as they could have in a way that would leave room for me to think beyond just, wow, what a cool era. But yeah, it was all right.
I mean, you're a fan of that sort of era, right?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the era, and that's why I was kind of hoping that they might lean into it a little bit more, because it's like, how much is the era that the movie set in window dressing or like compared to like when your characters are literally dressed like flappers fighting zombies off, like that's like like a different sort of like thing, right? So it was good. I wonder if there's going to be any sort of like franchise musings about this, because it was one of the most, if not the most successful original movie of 2025 so far in theaters, I think. So good for them. So we'll see.
Guess I'll see you in my dreams.
Yeah. So of course not.
We also watched Dream Scenario, new Nicolas Cage flick.
Well, new as in like a year old, but yes. This is an A24 feature as well.
Stamp of approval. I see that logo and I instantly get intrigued.
And it's a really, really easy premise to say without any sort of spoiling. Basically, this man, played by Nick Cage, shows up in your dreams, whether you know him or not. He just sort of is there, not doing anything at first. This movie is pretty cool. The script is well written. I liked the pacing a lot. I liked sort of the metaphors within it. And that's like, I've done more thinking about this one than Sinners, because I think there's more to unpack here.
Yeah, I kind of like this one more than Sinners.
Yeah,
honestly.
I would sooner rewatch this, just like I rewatched Longlegs and I got a greater appreciation for that after. I would also rewatch this and I probably appreciate it a lot more after.
Mm-hmm. This movie, it's funny. It's like almost a horror movie. It veers very close to being a horror movie, but it's not. I would classify it almost more as like a comedy drama.
I would say it's a psychological thriller.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good descriptor of it as well.
Yeah, like horror might be a bit too much, and if they tried to market it as a horror movie, that would be
I think they did a little bit. Some of the trailers are very horror.
Because that's what people sometimes assume A24 is. It's either got like the really compelling drama or it's got some freaky deaky horror like Hereditary or Midsommar type shit. But like this really doesn't quite go even that far. Like it plays it like if you're watching the movie, the world it establishes for itself. It explains the rules of it, and then it exploits it all pretty much to the max. And I don't want to like share too much about those rules or the world that it is in, because that's part of the experience of watching the movie, is it's showing you these are the rules of the world that they're in. And it does a really good job of not just establishing that, but the ways that it is then exploited for either comedic value, commercial value, or the uncomfortable feeling of like, oh, are my dreams even mine?
Yeah, and not to spoil too much what happens in the film, but basically there are a series of screw ups that happen in this poor Nicolas Cage man's life that sort of affect his behavior in the dreams that he appears in sort of a negative way. And it reminded me a lot of like sort of the Twitter culture where like people will go after you for things that they sort of imagine happened in their mind.
Yeah.
And like, where like events unfold differently from what they perceive, and they sort of like go after you for no real particular reason at all, even if you haven't actually done anything.
Yeah, well,
right?
that's what it's setting up by having a man that people don't really know. He's not famous even within the context of the movie until he starts randomly showing up in people's dreams that he doesn't even know.
Yeah.
It's that people are starting to formulate their entire like perception of this man, not based off of their real life interactions with him, but what their mind is cooking up, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is a very rich metaphor that allows for lots of story opportunities.
Yeah.
But you have to watch it to find out.
Yeah, go watch it. I especially recommend this one. This was a very good film.
Dream Scenario gets a solid 8 from me.
Yeah, me too. All right. Longest episode yet, over an hour and a half. Well, we had a lot to talk about. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks, which means that the next couple of weeks will probably be dull.
No. One can only hope.
Yeah.
All right. This has been episode 4 of Woke in the West. I am Eric.
And I am Nash.
And we will see you next time. We're going to go outside and get some tanning in.
Yes, the sun's out. Go enjoy that summer
Sunshine.
before the nuclear winter.
Woo!